This is literally as if Rashi was standing in the UN, right, with the crazy UN, right, and telling all of them, we have nothing to discuss. This is the answer to the UN and to anyone that raises this issue. Let's watch this video, and then I'm going to address something you might be thinking.
Hebt von Raschen sagt, Bereiche der Ronexin, aber soll wissen sein, Psag din Betere. Aber sagt onlich Atchile, als es sein, als in Zeit. Und nicht mit Sorgen Golui. Aber will etwas zunehmen, will etwas tun an Navle, sie teilen seine verkehrt mit rechtfertigen Menschen. Bis an Noschem Tzadikim, jagt sich nach Scholem. Man will darf gescholem. Aber wie bald man darf scholem, darf sich sein verbunden auf Newtown an Navle des Zweiten, hat doch ein Gasloni matten. Wo das sieht man bepasst es. Darf sehen, als soll sich nicht stellen gegen den Rotzen Abele, was Birzene in Nosnolohen und Birzene in Notlomehev in Noslo, Libnei soll am Gedesche in der Neven von Achlasele. Und dann ist mir nichts mehr schlicht mit dem Menschen, wenn Menschen dem nicht. Aber man hebt zu reden mit anderen Unionen. Okay, du mit Duber kam Pomi. Am setzt sich Adover Nifla, alle Teile Schönes und Schönes, was man gekonnt von hat nicht in Gänze. Das ist der einzige Teil, was bis ist, schämt sich zu sagen.
And so now you might be thinking that, okay, Rabbi, it's a nice religious response, but how practical is this? You're sitting in the White House, and you're telling the White House Bible stories. Like, how is this going to resolve the issue? So the first point is the point that the Rebbe just made. How do all the other answers that we've argued worked out? They work out with us yelling till we're blue in our face, right? And there are counter arguments. And in fact, for most, if not all of them, there are counter arguments to them. None of them are actually 100% soundproof, even though I'm not saying that they're wrong. They may be very right and strong, but there are counter arguments to it. There is no counter-argument to this, number one. Number two is, it's never been tried. See what happens. See what happens when we show up as people who believe in the Torah that God gave us and see what the response is going to be. But here's the critical point. The critical point is this, that it's not a matter even of convincing the other side. We do not need to convince the other side. We do not need to convince the other side. You know what we need to convince? We need to convince ourselves. That's it. If I'm convinced that the land of Israel belongs to me because I am a Jew and an ancestor of Abraham and therefore belongs to me, then I sit down and say, you share all wonderful ideas, but I just want you to know it's my land. This is my son. You can bring me all the proof in the world, and they can be wonderful proofs. He is my son. End of story. And when you stand in a negotiation that way, that is what matters more than anything else. That every one of us walks out onto the street with a knowing, without any hesitation. I just had a situation where a rabbi, who's also a lawyer, called me up. So I'm only a rabbi. So I'm sorry, I apologize. Right? Called me about a situation that he was invited into that I'm involved with resolving or trying to resolve. And he really didn't have a lot of information, but some information. And he suggested to one of the parties to do something, which in my opinion would be a grave mistake. And he called me up to, maybe, I don't know what his intent, whether either to convince me or to talk it out, maybe, and become, enlightened about things he doesn't know. And I told him that I disagree, right? And I will never agree to that person doing such a thing. That would be suicidal in that situation. And I would say, well, what would happen if you tell him to do that and he does that, and tomorrow X, Y, Z happens? What are you going to tell him? Right? Well, So I said, well, I want to tell you something. You don't know, right? You're not sure, right? So I told him, well, I do know. I do know what's going to happen if he does that. And therefore, I will not tell him to do this. Now, how do I know? I'm a prophet, right? No, I know because I know. I have experience in life. I spent a lot more time with the individuals involved, and I know exactly what's going to happen. And I stand in that strongly. And despite the fact that he's a rabbi and a lawyer to boot, I still know. It doesn't change anything. And I resolve that. Very simple. That's exactly what the Rebbe wants to, is conveying to every single one of us. That we have to convince ourselves so that we believe that the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. Will the world accept this argument? The Rebbe wasn't naive. The Rebbe spoke to the president of Israel. He was the president of Israel from, what years was it? I think we have it in the biography here. But for about 10 years. Anyway, his name was Zalman Shazar. And let's go to text. I'm trying to find it. Oh, there it is. 1963 to 1973, he was the president of Israel. That's through the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War. And text number 3, this is what the Rebbe tells him. He had a very close relationship with the Rebbe, actually.
I am not under the delusion that arguments based on principles of justice and integrity will prevail in the United Nations, the Vatican, etc. But the most important factor is the morale of the youth, including within the IDF and the students in the United States and elsewhere.
Thank you. What was the Rebbe saying? I understand that, such arguments won't necessarily prevail in places like the United Nations and the Vatican. However, the most important factor is the morale of the youth, including within the IDF and the students of the United States and elsewhere. What the Rebbe was saying over here is this, that it's critical, and the Rebbe makes this point numerous times, it's critical that every single Israeli know why the land is our land. It's critical that everyone knows this, that we know it. And this is the critical point. So I want to make this point. There's a big emphasis in the Hasbara. You may be familiar with that word, which is really to inform, enlighten the world. If you haven't learned yet, you can place videos in front of the world and they will still deny it. Okay, that's exactly what's happening today. Like after October 7th, literally, you can see thousands upon thousands of people who are still questioning what happened on October 7th. How do you know? Oh, Israel made those videos. Like, unbelievable, right? So who are we talking to? And so one point I want you to get out of tonight is that far more important than the world opinion, is the Jewish opinion. The Jewish opinion is the most important opinion. When the Jewish people's opinion is aligned, we will have nothing to worry about. Nothing whatsoever. We will be the strongest as ever. We will be God's people, and everything's going to work out. I'm going to throw this in, and again, I'm just totally speculating. I don't have inside information or intelligence as the Rebbe had access to. Okay? But I just want to say that, in my opinion, this whole Iran retaliation is a huge exaggeration. And what Israel just did is the most unbelievable thing that they should have done. And we need to be strong about that. Because when we are strong, they are quaking in their boots. That's just the way it is, because they know that we are confident to do this, that we will not hesitate. This is the power that we have. We carry the power. We don't have to... I'm not saying Hasbara is not important. We shouldn't explain to the world to the best that we can. But far more important is our own Hasbara, which is what we're doing tonight. Okay, so that is understanding why the land of Israel belongs to us.